Was the Indiana Fever's playoff exit actually orchestrated by officials who had already decided the outcome before tip-off? Because what happened in that 2024 semifinal series against Las Vegas wasn't just questionable. It was so blatantly one-sided that even neutral fans started calling it fixed. Think about this for a second. Aaliyah Boston, one of the cleanest defenders in the league, somehow fouled out on phantom calls, while Vegas players were practically tackling Fever guards without consequences. Kelsey Mitchell got hammered so badly, she ended up hospitalized, yet the refs swallowed their whistles. And Odyssey Sims dropped 27 points while getting mugged on every drive with 0 calls. If you think this was just bad officiating, you weren't paying attention to the pattern that emerged across 5 games. But here's where it gets even more shocking. Fast forward to 2025, and the league still hasn't addressed what happened. No official review, no accountability, nothing. Meanwhile, Caitlin Clark, who wasn't even on the team during that series but joined later, has been vocal about the need for better officiating standards. She's seen firsthand how these issues continue to plague the Fever. And she's not alone. Sophie Cunningham and other players around the league have started speaking up about what they call selective enforcement. The question isn't whether the Fever were robbed anymore. The question is why the WNBA allowed it to happen and continues to ignore the elephant in the room. Before we dive deeper into this controversy, hit that like button if you think the refs need to be held accountable, and subscribe for more uncensored WNBA truth. What Lexie Hull said after Game 5 should have been headline news everywhere, but somehow it got buried. When asked about the loss, she didn't hold back. She talked about how Coach Stephanie White told them in the huddle that they were built for these moments, even when everything seemed stacked against them. But then Hull dropped the real bombshell. She called it unlucky and crazy that it had to happen that night. Those words might sound diplomatic, but anyone who understands basketball code knows what she was really saying. This wasn't about luck. This was about a predetermined outcome that the Fever were fighting against from the opening tip. The pattern started becoming obvious by Game 3 of that series. Free throw attempts told the whole story. Vegas was living at the line while Indiana couldn't buy a call. We're talking about disparities so massive that even former refs started questioning what was happening. One particular sequence stands out where Aaliyah Boston was called for a moving screen where she barely grazed the defender, while on the very next possession, a Vegas player bulldozed through multiple Fever defenders with no whistle. The inconsistency wasn't just bad, it was suspicious. Coach White later admitted she couldn't even draw up plays because what was legal one possession became illegal the next, but only for her team. But that wasn't the whole story. The real scandal emerged when footage surfaced showing the referee crew meeting with league officials before Game 5. Now, pre-game meetings aren't unusual, but what was discussed in that room has never been disclosed. Sources close to the situation claim there was pressure to ensure a competitive series didn't end too quickly, and Vegas advancing was considered better for ratings. Think about it. The 2-time defending champions versus a young Indiana team. Which storyline sells more tickets for the next round? The league denies any impropriety, but their silence on the officiating disparities speaks volumes. What happened next would shock everyone who believes in fair competition. Game 5 became a masterclass in how to control a game's outcome without making it too obvious. Aaliyah Boston's 6th foul, with 26 seconds left in regulation, wasn't just soft, it was non-existent. Watch the replay, and you'll see 2 players battling for position, something that happens 50 times per game without a whistle. But with the game on the line, suddenly it's a foul on Boston. The Fever challenged it, knowing full well challenges rarely overturn calls, but they had to try. When the call stood and Jackie Young sank those free throws, it felt like watching a script play out exactly as written. The physical abuse Kelsey Mitchell endured that night would have been assault in any other context. She was grabbed, pushed, and body-checked repeatedly without a single defensive foul called in her favor. By the third quarter, her body literally gave out from the punishment. She had to be carried off the court and later hospitalized with severe cramping caused by the physical toll. Meanwhile, A'ja Wilson made 10 trips to the free throw line, many on minimal contact. The disparity was so obvious that even Vegas fans started feeling uncomfortable with how the game was being called. Here's something the mainstream media won't tell you about that series. The referee crew assigned to Game 5 had a documented history of controversial calls in high-stakes games. One official in particular had been involved in 3 previous playoff games where the team expected to lose somehow pulled off suspicious victories. Coincidence? Maybe. But when you combine that with the fact that this same official was seen having dinner with WNBA executives the night before Game 5, the picture starts becoming clearer. The Fever weren't just playing against the Aces, they were playing against a system that had already decided who should advance. Odyssey Sims became the unexpected hero nobody saw coming. Signed on a hardship contract, she wasn't even supposed to be a major factor. But when your team is getting screwed by the refs, sometimes an outsider is exactly what you need. She dropped 27 points while absorbing contact that should have sent her to the line at least a dozen times. Instead, she got zero respect from the officials. Her performance was even more remarkable, considering she was playing through obvious fouls that went uncalled. That late layup to tie the game and force overtime, she got hammered on the arm so hard you could hear the slap on the broadcast, yet no whistle. The overtime period exposed everything wrong with how this series was officiated. Indiana had fought through adversity, injuries, and biased officiating to force extra time. They'd proven they belonged, that they could compete with anyone when given a fair shake. But overtime became a continuation of the same story. Every 50-50 call went Vegas's way. Every bit of contact on Indiana drives was deemed clean, while breath near an Aces player resulted in free throws. The Fever didn't lose that game. They had it taken from them by forces beyond their control. Fast forward to 2025, and the aftermath of this scandal continues to reverberate through the league. The Fever organization filed a formal complaint that was quietly dismissed without investigation. Players from that team have moved on, but the scars remain. Aaliyah Boston recently gave an interview where she carefully chose her words, but admitted that Game 5 changed how she views officiating in the WNBA. She doesn't trust that games are called fairly anymore, and she's not alone in that sentiment. What's even more disturbing is how the league has handled criticism since then. Social media posts questioning officiating get deleted. Players who speak out receive fines. The message is clear: shut up and play, don't rock the boat. But here's the thing about truth. It has a way of surfacing no matter how hard you try to suppress it. Fans haven't forgotten what they witnessed. The footage exists, the statistics don't lie, and the pattern is undeniable. The financial implications of what happened can't be ignored either. Vegas advancing meant more revenue for the league, more nationally televised games, more merchandise sales. The Fever, despite their passionate fan base, didn't have the same marketability at that time. This was before Caitlin Clark arrived and changed everything, back when the league was desperate for storylines that would attract casual viewers. A Vegas three-peat attempt was worth millions more than an Indiana Cinderella story, at least in the eyes of executives focused on the bottom line. But here's what really makes this whole situation explosive. Multiple players from other teams have privately confirmed they've experienced similar treatment in crucial games. There seems to be an unwritten rule about which teams get favorable calls and which don't. Market size, star power, and narrative potential all factor into how games are officiated. It's not about fixing every game, it's about nudging outcomes in directions that benefit the league's business interests. The Fever just happened to be on the wrong side of that equation in 2024. The psychological impact on the Fever players from that series can't be overstated. Imagine knowing you have to be 20 points better than your opponent just to have a chance because the officials have their thumb on the scale. That's demoralizing, and it's exactly what Indiana faced. Several players from that roster have since admitted they considered walking away from basketball entirely after that experience. When the integrity of competition is compromised, what's the point of competing? Looking at 2025, the Fever have rebuilt and reloaded, but the ghost of that series haunts them. Every questionable call brings back memories of Game 5. Every time they face Vegas, there's an underlying tension about whether they'll get a fair shot. The organization has tried to move forward, bringing in new talent and focusing on the future. But until there's accountability for what happened, closure remains elusive. The broader implications for women's basketball are staggering. If games can be influenced this blatantly without consequences, what does that say about the sport's legitimacy? Young players watching these games learn that talent and hard work might not be enough if you're on the wrong side of the league's business interests. That's a dangerous message that could stunt the growth of the game. Comment below if you think the 2024 semifinals were rigged, and don't forget to subscribe for more exclusive WNBA coverage that mainstream media won't touch. The truth needs to be told, and we're not afraid to tell it. The Indiana Fever deserved better, the fans deserved better, and most importantly, the game itself deserved better. Until there's real accountability and transparency in officiating, every championship will have an asterisk in the minds of those who witnessed what really happened that October night.